Welcome to part one of my two-part video series where I'll be transforming the air quality in my kitchen with some pretty cool retrofit ventilation system upgrades. So if, like me, you're mid-renovation or you're just looking to improve the air quality in this all-important family space, then these videos are for you. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I defied the skeptics with some pretty mind-bogglingly brilliant extraction power from halfway across an internal wall. Even the building regs officer was impressed. And in next week's video, I'm going to show you how you can truly achieve single room heat recovery without having to rip your roof apart to install complicated ducting. Now, at this time of year, when we shut all our windows as the weather's getting colder, whilst generating just as much moisture as usual, having a decent vapour management strategy is more important than ever to keep those damp, mould and condensation problems at bay. Now, I've been talking about this for quite a long time now, and there's a link to my last update video coming up on screen now. Basically, there is so much you can do to improve or lower humidity in your house or flat at this time of year. Now, check out that video for more information, but suffice to say the kitchen is one of the main contributors to the moisture levels that you have in your house. So I was keen to tackle this as effectively as possible in this kitchen renovation. And as this is the room in the house where we all tend to spend most of our time, it makes sense to get the air quality in here as good as possible. Now, just to put today's changes in context, let's have a quick run through of what retrofit options are available in your house to transform air quality and eradicate damp, mould and condensation problems. Firstly, you've got MVHR or mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. Now, this is obviously the ultimate house-wide ventilation system, with extractors in every room, including the kitchen, exchanging stale air with fresh whilst retaining heat. But unfortunately, to have all those extractors in each room, you need ceiling ducting throughout the house, and one of these great big systems to power it all. Which is why they're mostly just installed in new builds. And I didn't have the luxury, let alone the cash flow to do this, particularly given I was only ripping apart the ceilings in our kitchen. Now, the next system you might consider if you've got damp, mould and condensation problems is a PIV, or positive input ventilation system. Now, PIVs aren't directly related to kitchen extraction, but if you're generating too much moisture in your house that you're not able to effectively remove through your existing extraction in the kitchen, bathroom or elsewhere, you might need a PIV. So please hear me out, as you might find this section useful. And this is a fan mounted in the landing ceiling in a house or on an external wall if you've got flat. And what this does is it funnels air from the loft space, from outside, throughout your house to basically force the air to circulate in all the rooms where typically it wouldn't. Now, these systems are groundbreaking, and you've only got to look at the love in the comment section below the update videos I've done on damp, mould and condensation just to see how much it's transformed the houses of people who have installed them. Now, I'd really like to install one as an experiment just to see what they're like, but to be honest with you, because of the measures that I've put in practice in our house, it's not actually necessary. But I did have building regs breathing down my neck to comply with the various regulations affecting ventilation in your kitchen, which brings us back to what I've done in this space. Now, under building regs, you need a fan in your kitchen. And if you've got an oven hood fan which vents outside, then you don't need an additional fan elsewhere, as long as the extraction of that is a minimum of 30 litres per second. If, however, your cooker hood fan is recirculating the fumes, using these sort of charcoal filters, or there's no cooker hood installed, then you'll need a dedicated intermediate kitchen fan with a minimum of 60 litres per second of extraction. I'm not a big fan of these filters, if you pardon the pun. And in fact, if you've got a hood that's compatible with these filters, I don't need these, so bung me a couple of coffees to cover the postage and I'll send them out to you. But anyway, I wanted to extract externally, having done that in my old kitchen. You've only got to smell cooking fumes as you're walking down the garden. From an externally venting fan to realise why you want the fumes coming outside rather than back through one of these into the kitchen. And I had a bit of a challenge on my hand because the distance from this fan to the outside wall was about 2.8 metres. And unfortunately, when I installed the new floor structure for this ceiling and my daughter's bedroom above, I wasn't thinking about kitchen extraction at the time. So I tripled up the joists and put them far too close to the wall, exactly where the run for the extractor fan ideally would have gone. But anyway, I had to get this done. I had nothing to lose, so I went online and I bought a load of ducting parts, including 45 and 90 degree bends, 3 meters of 125mm diameter spiral ducting, suspension clip hangers, and male and female connection pieces. The total cost of £112. I've got a few things left over that inevitably I didn't end up using, but I thought better to get too much rather than too little because I didn't know how all the angles were going to fit together. I then excavated a hole in the outside wall using my SDS drill, in drill and then chisel mode. So much quicker doing it this way than trying to drill a hole with a core drill bit. Believe you me, I've tried on the other side of the room, and whilst these bricks are soft, the core drill wouldn't touch some of our harder engineering style bricks. We had a hole, and loosely fitting the ducting in place with a nice gentle fall across the run to the outside wall, I thought this might work. And speaking of the fall, I had a bit of modification to make to the hangers, removing the bolts as otherwise the pipe wouldn't have been high enough at the extraction point. I should have ordered the other clips that don't come with bolts attached. And I had a bit of notching to do to that joist, which I was cool with because this joist is pretty much right up against the wall, carries very little weight, and the third joist was arguably unnecessary according to my structural engineer anyway. With that done, I can lift the spiral ducting into position and fasten the suspension clips tight. I decided the best way to guarantee all the bends fitted together correctly was to dry fit the extractor on the new stud wall I had just installed, and with this done I could apply the duct sealant and then fit the entire run together. Twisting and manipulating all those joints to get the rigid ducting sitting as neatly and comfortably as possible. One more suspension clip to fix in place and then some self-tapping screws, which I bought online. And I just want to show you this photo because with the breathable wall insulation in place, I was pretty proud of how tidy this whole thing was looking. The trickiest thing was trying to second guess the exact placement of the kitchen units when I didn't even have a wall plastered. But with the help of detailed plans from my kitchen manufacturer, a bit of head scratching and scribbling, I somehow got it pretty much bang on. I had 2 more jobs to do: install an external cowl. After making good the duct exit point with expanding foam and mortar, you need to get one of these mortar guns if you haven't already got one. There'll be a link in the description. Again, I bought the cowl on Amazon too and gave it a couple of coats of spray paint Zinza cover stain before carefully fixing it in position. And fabricating a new chimney hood. This was a cardboard template from the 2 pieces that came with the fan, and a bit of creativity with the angle grinder and Dremel, and I managed to modify the 2 straight sections of ducting that came with the hood to produce an angled piece that would cover that ducting. And I'm pretty pleased with the end result. All that was left to do was lower the hood so that we could slot the new chimney section in place. Now, 2 final points to make in today's video, and the first concerns a bit of improvisation that I had to do because this cowl has a backdraft shutter, which I thought was quite a good idea to stop sort of cold air whistling into the kitchen, quite important on this south facing side of the cottage. But the problem is, when I was in the kitchen, there was a constant clanking noise in the wind from the backdraft shutter. It took me a while to figure out what to do about this, and in the end the answer came with one of these super strong magnets that I generally use to find screws in stud work. And the beauty of this magnet is it doesn't attract to the cowl structure itself, but what it does do is it attracts to the actual ducting. So what I've done is I've glued one of my spare magnets to the outside of the backdraft shutter, and what that's doing is it's forcing the shutter closed because a magnet can just about magnetise to the ducting behind. But when you turn the fan on, it's not powerful enough to stop that shutter opening. So you've already seen a couple of clips showing the power of this fan, but what's going on here? A couple of the engineering gurus on my Discord forum were particularly sceptical that a fan could convey its extraction effectively over such a long distance. So how is it so effective? Well, the first point to make is I went for the most powerful fan I could find in the stove's range to match my oven. I thought it makes sense to match the oven, and at £357 it's obviously not cheap. but it's got a maximum extraction rate on setting 3 of 610 cubic meters per hour, or a whopping 760 in boost mode. If you put that back into building regs language, that's 169 litres per second, or 211 in boost. The second point to make here is I was careful to install rigid ducting. You should never use that plastic flexi ducting in any of your ventilation systems if you can avoid it, except for perhaps where you're joining the fan, be it an inline fan or otherwise, to the rigid ducting where you can't use anything else. I got AI to work calculating the drag or reducing effect on that extraction rate of having a 2.8 meter rigid spiral duct and two 45-degree bends. Now, I don't understand any of the results other than zooming to the conclusion that says I've lost a mere 2.8 litres per second, which reduces the total extraction to 166 litres per second. Remember, building regs requirement is 30. Now, these figures are obviously slightly theoretical, and there are so many things that can influence extraction rate, like, for example, opening the window, which you should always do when you've got the extractor on, so the extractor isn't sucking in a sort of vacuum. Now, if I'd used plastic flexi ducting in the same 125mm diameter, I'd be looking at a total reduction of 30 to 50% in the extraction rate. So we could be going down to as much as 84.5 litres per second. Now, that's still over the building regs requirement, obviously, but all the friction in the pipe that caused that reduction isn't necessary. And don't forget that any condensation that forms is going to just form in the plastic ridges of the ducting. And from that condensation, you're going to get all sorts of problems like mould forming in the pipe. And the last point to make is we've insulated this roof space with rock wool, and that rock wool completely encapsulated this rigid ducting. I haven't got a photo, unfortunately, but you get the idea. And in so doing, we've hopefully minimised the condensation forming in that pipe. And as I said earlier, I've sloped the spiral ducting down from the extractor fan to the outside wall. So if there is any condensation, it should nicely drain out through the system. And having a quick peek inside the pipe today, it looks pretty clear. If a little dusty, and those are my finger marks you can see at the base. A couple of interesting things to finish on. After my last damp, mould and condensation video, a couple of people said in the comments section that the other thing they do to increase air quality in their house is to open all the windows in their house or flat every now and again to completely purge that humid air, which is, I guess, your own DIY PIV. Now, this got me thinking, because after all the insulation work we've done in this kitchen and the underfloor heating, I'm not going to lie, when I come in here sometimes it is a bit stuffy. So I thought, why not take that air purging idea and add it to my Velux that I installed last summer. There will be a video in the pipeline on that installation. I wanted an electric Velux just for future proofing, and also because you can't reach it. And I thought if I used a rod, I'd never actually get round to doing it. So I went with the sort of basic level Velux app control kit, which gives you this wall switch and the ability to control the window through the app on your phone. I absolutely love the control you can have with this blind. The app is pretty much bulletproof. But I hadn't really done any scheduling up to the time where I started researching for this video. So I thought, why don't I add Velux Active, which gives you this smart sensor, and in so doing, the ability to open and shut the window to control other things like CO2 and humidity. Now, here's a comparison table showing what Velux App Control and Velux Active actually does. I think I've probably wasted 70 quid here, because on Velux App Control, I could have set daily schedules to open and shut the window to keep airing the room. And whilst I have set Velux Active at the moment to air the room regularly and also to monitor humidity levels, I think there's a bit too much overlap between the different functions that you get in Velux Active. And with the single room heat recovery fan I'm going to show you next week, arguably that is going to do too effective a job for Velux Active to ever need to open the window when humidity levels get too high. But also by opening the Velux, we can maximise the efficiency of that kitchen extractor. So that's it for today. I hope you found today's video interesting and that you don't feel I've veered too much off the main subject of talking about this beast behind me. I just think it's important that we all understand that kitchen extraction is just one part, albeit a very important part, of your general house vapour management strategy. And you sort of need to understand every single bit of it to maximise to work out the best strategy for your house or flat. And don't forget, a link to my last condensation, moisture, humidity update will be in the description below the vid. Thanks again for watching. If you're new to my channel, it means so much to me to have you subscribe. You can do that by clicking on the link here. And don't forget to click the bell notification icon so you get notified of all my future uploads. See you soon.